Every piece was insured for millions. The microphone squealed as she tried to talk over me, but I didn't hand it back. I stood in the middle of the Maple Ridge clubhouse, chilly steam and cinnamon candles mixing in the November air, and said 3 words into the mic that cut the room clean in half. "Play the video." Pamela's smile froze. Seth's knuckles went white around the cash box. The raffle wheel kept spinning behind them, clicking like a guilty clock. "Before I rewind, hit subscribe and drop a comment with your city. Tell me where you're watching from." I read them all, and I want to know your neighborhood. Let me take you back to how we got here. 10 months earlier, when I let my hair go unbrushed for 3 days on purpose and forgot my car keys in the refrigerator so my neighbors would think I was losing it. I'm Lorraine Pruitt, 69, widow, retired school librarian, the kind who could tell you which second grader would try to sneak Captain Underpants under her sweatshirt. I can still find the right book for a scared kid with 2 questions and a smile. Frank, my husband with the steady hands and the sly grin, has been gone 6 years. He passed on a rainy April afternoon while I was making stew, and he was tuning an old harmonica he found for $1 in a jar at someone's yard sale. We were married 44 years. He left me a garage full of junk and a house full of stories. We never had the kind of money you'd brag about, but we had time and we had curious eyes. For 40 years we haunted estate sales and thrift shops, church basements, and one doomed bowling alley that shut its doors with all the scoreboards still humming. Frank had a feel for things made by a person's hands. He could touch the edge of a quilt and tell you the year by the dye. He could see a carved toy in a box of baby clothes and know a civilian conservation corps kid whittled it through a winter. He taught me to look close, to let the weight of a thing speak. Remember that detail. We lived in Maple Ridge, a development that used to be a farm and still smells like corn silk when the sprinkler lines leak. The folks here keep their driveways clean and their shutters matching. There's a clubhouse with a saltwater pool and a bulletin board where notices sprout like mushrooms. HOA meetings, yoga classes, lost cat, cookie exchange. The board is led by a woman named Pamela Knox, the kind of woman who can fold a fitted sheet and an argument with the same neat corners. She runs a senior transitions business out of her minivan. Silver Nest Transitions, cursive lettering, bird's nest logo. She calls at least one person Hon in every sentence, like a tick. She started noticing me, or pretending to, after she saw me carry a box from my garage to the back porch one bright September. "Lorraine!" she sang, walking across the cul-de-sac in wedge, sandals like she was gliding. "We've been meaning to check in. How are you holding up? That garage looks full." "It's a garage," I said. "Not a ballroom." She laughed much too hard. "I'm just thinking of safety, hun. Tripping hazards. And your mind, memory clutter makes mind clutter, they say." "My mind's fine," I said. I could tell you the Dewey Decimal numbers for quilting patterns and Missouri Railroad history without looking. "I'm sure it is," she said, eyes already on my boxes. Her son, Seth, idled his truck nearby. He's in his 30s, all muscle and beard oil, baseball cap pulled low. A permanent look like he's had to explain the big game to too many people who don't get it. He runs Knox Estate Liquidators, which is to say he shows up with tables and a square card reader and sells what's not his for a cut. People say he's good. I say he's fast. The thing about me is, I know when I'm being measured. Library work teaches you to see the angle of a person's interest. Pamela's angle was sharp. Around that time, my granddaughter, Maya, moved in with me. 22, bright like summer on asphalt. She was between things, between majors, between relationships. She needed somewhere quiet, and I needed someone to tell what TikTok is. "I'll only be here a couple months," she said, suitcase on my welcome mat. She smelled like coconut shampoo and the coffee from the drive-through where she worked. I watched her tuck her hair behind her ear and hoped I was still the home base she remembered. Here's where the first thread pulled loose. It was such a little thing. A chipped teacup. Blue, with a gold line, someone's hand shook over. I kept it in the garage in a clear bin labelled teacups because I am a librarian and labelling is a comfort. I was pricing a few things with blue painter's tape for the church rummage sale, just odds and ends I could really spare. I put 2 on the chipped cup. When I came back from letting the cat out, the 2 had a little curl added to make a 20. I took it off and laughed at myself. "Who do you think you are, cup?" I said. But then I found the same tiny curl on a wooden puzzle Frank loved, pushing it from a $10 donation to a $100 badge of importance. It wasn't my handwriting. It was careful and foreign. I asked Maya if she'd moved anything. She was brushing her eyelashes in the hall. "What? No. Why?" "Some of my price tags changed." She shrugged. "Maybe you forgot. You do sometimes." "Do I?" I asked it like a joke. Inside me, a small, brisk woman flipped open a notebook and wrote down, that word. Forgot. We went to the first HOA potluck of the fall. Maple leaves skittered across the clubhouse steps, and someone had arranged gourds like a little festival of beige. The chilly cook-off table ran along one wall, crock-pots bubbling. At the microphone, Pamela smiled like a catalogue model and introduced Silver Nest's new program, a free safety assessment and declutter day for our most beloved seniors. "We don't want to wake up to a broken hip," she said. "And let's be honest, stuff is just stuff." "Not always," I called without thinking. Frank's harmonica lived on the 3rd shelf of the garage cabinets, wrapped in one of his bandanas, red and fading. Stuff is sometimes the only door you have left to a voice you lost. "Of course," she said, bright. "Sentimental items are different, but when people resist change, it's not about the objects." She leaned into the mic. "It's fear, and fear makes us forgetful, doesn't it? So be kind, be firm." I felt a few looks slide my way. I smiled like I didn't feel my cheeks burn. A man behind me whispered, "You know how dusk makes them wild." Sundowning. He meant dementia. I could have turned and corrected him gently. Sundowning is not a catch-all. It's complex. But I tucked that word too into my notebook. The next week, Pamela and Seth showed up with a casserole. "We brought chicken tetrazzini," she chimed. "And while it bakes, Seth can take a look in your garage." "I don't need help," I said. I folded a dish towel slowly, an old librarian trick. Slow moves give people time to say what they mean by their hurry. "It's no trouble," Seth said. "I can load a few boxes and donate them to the church for you. Or we can put a few items up at the fall yard sale and make you some cash." "My church will be fine without my stuff," I said. "Hon," she said, lowering her voice, the mark of someone about to insult you. "We were talking to Maya. She's worried. You've been forgetting things. Are you eating? The dogs are barking when you leave the garage light on all night." "I don't have a dog," I said. She blinked. "That would be the Hendersons. They bark at everything that moves." "See?" She didn't miss a beat. "That's what I mean. Little slips. No shame in it. That's why we have community." I looked at Maya. She didn't meet my eyes. "Grandma?" she said. "Pam's a professional. She helped my friend Tasha's grandma when she moved." "I'm not moving," I said. "Eat your casserole while it's hot." Pamela did a little laugh, like when a flight attendant makes a joke about turbulence. Seth had his phone out, eyes on it. When he thought I wasn't looking, he tilted his attention to the garage door. He looked like a fisherman watching a bobber, patient, knowing the line he'd thrown. Remember that too. I won't bore you with every detail of how a person is sanded down by good intentions. It's a slow work, like winter. You get, "Sweetie, you already told me that." And "We worry when you don't answer." And "I think we've had this conversation." You get papers pushed at you, friendly releases, just in case, power of attorney forms, notes with phone numbers circled. You get little packages with pill organizers inside, like you're a child again. You get jokes about your age, from people who will be lucky to reach it. You get the candy, you get the cane, you get the smile that strains. You get the story people need you to tell about yourself so they can do what they want and be righteous about it. I let them. For a while. I wore my sweater wrong side out to the HOA book club. I asked the same question in 3 different ways to see who rolled their eyes by the third. I put my oatmeal in the microwave without water and made a smoky mess. I let my garage light burn all night. People notice lights. They stare through window blinds like birds at a cat. People get nervous. They start making new habits around your troubles. They test your fence for gaps. That's how I learned the gate code wasn't a secret anymore. I only told 3 people. Maya, my pastor, and the locksmith. I didn't tell Pamela. And yet one Wednesday morning, when I went out for the paper, I saw the smallest thing, a scuff on the concrete by my side door, a crescent made by a shoe and a hand's on a keypad. I wiped it with my thumb. It was new. That same week, my mother's quilt went missing. It wasn't fancy. Moth-nibbled in one corner. Indigo and muslin, hand-tied with thread that made little stars. My grandmother wrote her name in pencil on the back of one square, so faint you could only see it if the light hit right. I kept it folded in a clean bin, labelled textiles, family. That's not a bin you leave open. I found it gaping like a mouth. "Did you take the blue quilt out?" I asked Maya at dinner. I kept my voice soft. "No," she said, poking at her mashed potatoes. Her phone lit her hip. "Don't lie to me," I said. She looked up, stung. I said no. "Then ask your friend, the one with the beard. Did he?" "You mean Seth," she said, too quick. She flushed. "He's not my friend. He's Pam's son. And he gave me a ride to the big box store when my car wouldn't start. He didn't take anything." "How did he know about your car?" I asked. "Everybody knows everything in Maple Ridge," she said. She stood up to clear dishes, rattling them like she'd been wronged. "You're making up problems. This is why people don't want to help you. You bite their hands." Her words did what they were meant to do. They made me small and wrong. They pushed me back into myself. She stormed to her room. I heard her phone buzz and her giggle crack under her breath. I closed my eyes and saw the pencil in my grandmother's hand, scratching her name on muslin. I saw Frank wheeling a cart through a junk store with his hand on the handle like a captain. I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, thinking about scuffs on concrete and the smell of my mother's quilt when the summer air warmed the cedar chest. I thought about Pamela's casserole and Seth's open jaw when he stared at my garage. I thought about the box of paperwork Frank and I put together the year his doctor said the word we didn't want. Terminal. He was a neat man. He loved to leave things in order. The box lived behind the 3rd row of books on the top shelf of the guest room, a place where no one who didn't love reading would ever look. In that box was a list he wrote in careful block letters. Scheduled items, insurance rider. 15 pages. Photographs. Appraisals, not one of the two-bit kind, but real ones. We had collected a lifetime, and it turned out a lifetime had weight in the world. We didn't talk about it much outside the two of us. People don't treat you the same when they know you're sitting on something that cash could turn into. They act like you owe them a cut of your past. But I'll tell you, every piece we owned that looked like junk had a number next to it on that sheet, and the numbers together would have made our neighbours blink. It wasn't lottery money. It was careful money. It was, "This quilt is the last of its kind" money. It was, "This carved toy was made by a man in 1933 who carved with a penknife while his hands shook from hunger" money. It was, "This neon clock from a diner that closed in 58 still runs" money. The policy had been our gift to me for when he left. Not to sell immediately, but to protect. I could borrow against it, insure, donate strategically, and force institutions to take me seriously. He knew people would tell me I was just sentimental. He wanted me to have paper that sang louder than their choir. The next morning, I made calls. I called Zeke Compton, a retired insurance adjuster who used to play dominoes with Frank at the VFW. He still wears a hat with pins on it like a sash. Zeke took my wife's coffee and let me talk. "Does your policy have microtagging?" he asked. "What?" "Little stickers, invisible ink, newer thing. You can stick a tag in the seam of a quilt, under a clock face. Then you keep a reader. Not locator, mind you. A tag. So if someone claims a thing is theirs, you can prove it's yours." I met a young man at a storefront in a strip mall who called me ma'am and showed me a kit from a company called Larkstone Tags. He didn't care about my story. He cared about my credit card. That made him useful. I bought 2 kits. I went home, shut my garage door, and worked. I stitched tiny chips into seams. I tucked tags under wooden trim where only someone who loved these things would put them. I marked down the tag ID next to each item on a fresh sheet. Librarians love a fresh sheet. I took photographs of the tags half tucked into place. Proof of placement. I also installed a little camera in a ceramic rooster so oddly cheerful it had to be good. It would watch the garage. It would blink green only if your eye already knew to look for it. I taped a note to the bin with the teacups that said, "Donate after Thanksgiving," and I left my notebook open to memory things to sort. With sloppy handwriting I had to practice. It felt like acting an ugly part. After dinner, I made tea. "I'm going to bed early," I told Maya. "You can stay up and watch whatever. Don't open the garage. The cat will get in." "I know," she said, eyes on her phone. My phone buzzed at 11:17, a motion notification. I let it buzz. Then I put on my robe and sat in the dark at the kitchen table, where I could see the garage door through the hall. At 11:26, it opened. Quiet. Practice makes a thief smooth. I saw 2 shadows. One was broad, one had a ponytail. They went straight to the shelves where the bins sat. They set down their own boxes. The shape with the ponytail parted her hair and tucked it behind her ear. It's a motion mothers recognize like their own names. "Maya?" I said into the dark. She stiffened. The shadows froze. "Grandma? Who's there with you?" A man's voice. "It's just me. It's just Seth." The casual "just" told on him. "Shut the door," I said. Footsteps. The man said, "She's fine. Go tell her you're fine." He thought he could steer my house like a grocery cart. Maya came down the hall. She looked a little sick. "I'm sorry," she said. "Pam said we could take a few boxes of things to the community sale, the ones you put tape on. You said they were for church. This way we can make money for your house repairs." You need a new water heater. If you don't do it now, it'll break when it's cold. I said after Thanksgiving. It's October. She said they'd sell better if they could preview them. You're telling me they need a preview for people to buy my old rolling pins. She swallowed. You leave the garage light on. You forget. I just thought. Her eyes filled. Go to bed, I said softly. We'll talk in the morning. Seth stepped into the doorway like it was his doorway. You know, you don't have to be stubborn about everything. We're trying to help. She worries. I worry. You're in my house at midnight, I said. I spoke like a librarian at story time. Calm is sometimes the only power a woman gets to hold. Do you want the money or not? He said. I want you out, I said. Now. He held his hands up. We'll come back when you're in a better mood. Pamela apologized the next day without apologizing. Boundaries are important, she said. We're on your team. We just think you get a little confused sometimes. It happens to all of us when we're under stress. And Maya, she told me you called her a liar. I called her my granddaughter, I said. Oh, hun. She smiled. Be reasonable. You've forgotten things. And you've remembered too much, I said. That afternoon, I went to the senior center and asked to speak to someone about elder abuse. I am not a person who likes the word elder. I like grown. But I also like the look a receptionist gives you when you say abuse in a quiet voice. She stops doing whatever else she's doing. A man in a suit with a county badge came out of a door with a frosted window. He sat with me in a little room with chairs that must have been donated by a dentist. He asked me to tell him everything. He listened like it mattered to him that people be good. Do you want us to step in? He asked. Not yet, I said. If you step in now, they'll clean up. I want you to see it. I want my neighbors to see it. That's the only way this stops. You want a sting? He said, plain. I want proof, I said. So when I open my mouth, nobody can tell me my mind made it up. They've been practicing that line of theirs. I want to break the habit. He gave me a card. I'm Investigator Price. We can equip your place with 2 more cameras. We'll do it discreetly. We can also bring in our consumer protection folks. This Silver Nest business sounds like it's crossed some lines. But I want you to know, it will get noisy, and it could be the people you didn't expect. Noise I can handle, I said. I've been listening to my neighbor's leaf blower at 6 a.m. for 6 years. Quietly, we set the trap. They didn't see it because they were busy seeing something else. They saw my messy bun. They saw the sweater I wore twice. They saw the little pills in the dish. They saw the cat that isn't mine. They saw the garage light. They saw old. They saw woman. They saw easy. What they didn't see was the sticker the investigator slid under my baseboard, and the way I tucked a small recorder into a cookie tin with a broken hinge in the garage. They didn't see the old slim gym we folded into the bottom of my front door to measure if it moved at night. They didn't see Zeke, who still has a way with a clipboard, bringing over a stack of forms that looked like boring and were actually a net. Updated deed of gift papers to the Historical Society for the items with the most value, with a clause my attorney wrote that said any removal of scheduled items from the property without my express consent triggered a civil replevin action and a complaint with the AG's office. That clause was my 3 words in progress. Read the clause. We ended up going with something else, but I liked the way the words looked in my head. I also called a journalist. Not one of the slick ones who stand outside courthouses. A local reporter who does those Call Dana segments that get catalytic converters and bad contractors on TV. I met her at a diner and let her eat her BLT like a normal person while I talked. She ordered a black coffee and listened. "I get calls like this all the time," she said, and I could see the sadness under the paint she put on for cameras. "But most of them come too late, or they get messy with family. If you're ready to be the face of it, and if you've got video, I'd like to help." "You can blur my granddaughter's face," I said. She nodded. "I can blur anything you ask." Then she smiled for the first time. "Also, if you can hold off until you can present it where they can't wriggle, people watch these episodes more when there's a crowd." "We have our fall yard sale and chili cook-off downtown," I said. "The HOA hosts it. Everyone shows up. Everyone who matters, anyway." "I love chili," she said, and slid me a business card. The nights got longer. People's patience for each other gets shorter when it's dark at 5. I did little things to keep the story they told about me alive. I put a bag of green beans in the freezer labeled peas. I lost my keys and found them in the basket where I put them every day. I told Maya the same story about the time her grandpa bungee corded a milk crate to the back of his bicycle and fell into the peonies 3 times. She rolled her eyes and said, "You already told me." Each eye roll was a pin on the map I was drawing. Then something cut me. It was a small slice, but it bled a lot. The automaton in the brown wooden box that sat on the workbench disappeared. Frank made it in the winter after his mother died. You wound it, and a little wooden bird pecked 3 times on a spring-loaded tray. He carved the bird from a dowel with his pocket knife and gave it too large a beak because he said our boy made a chicken like that in 2nd grade, and laughed and laughed. The box was greasy from his hands. It was nothing to anyone else. It was everything to me. That's when my little act stopped being art and turned into a plan. I called Seth. "You can help me," I said when he answered. "I want to put some items into the yard sale. You seem to know how to make money." "Finally," he said, bored. "What do you have? Old chairs?" "A quilt," I said. "A clock. A neon sign from a diner. A crate of 50s toys. A trunk." "A trunk?" "Old," I said. "Green paint under black." "Bring it by my storage unit," he said. "I'll look it over, and we'll do it right." "No," I said. "You come here. I'll pay your commission. But my back hurts." "Fine," he said. "Tomorrow. Noon." I called Investigator Price. "They're coming," I said. "Get your boots." He did not say, "We'll be there." He said, "We already are." They came through my garage door at noon, like kings. Pamela wore a scarf and said, "Hon, I knew you'd see sense. Decluttering is an act of love." I kept my face soft. You can't catch a fish if you jump into the lake screaming. "I picked a few pieces," I said. "I just want to make sure I do it right." "I'll take notes," Seth said, pulling out his phone. "Let me get my list," I said, and turned my back. I heard the distinct click of a phone cam opening. When I turned around, his phone was face down, his smile busy. "Do you mind if I get a picture for the sale listing?" he asked. "Of course," I said. "If you need better light, I can turn on the lamp." He took pictures of the trunk, the quilt, the neon clock, the toy crate. He took them from angles that would include my wall, my calendar, the shadow of my cat. He didn't know he was also taking a picture of the micro-tag reader on my workbench, tucked behind a coffee can with screws. He didn't know he was in a frame, too. "I'll take these to my storage unit to prep," he said. "We've got a climate-controlled place. You don't want old textiles sitting in the garage." "I do want to do it right," I said. "I trust you." Their faces lit. "Of course you do," Pamela said. "You can trust us." "Here's a thing people don't respect until they need it. Paperwork." I handed her a stiff clipboard with 3 sheets. Sign here, I said. It just says you're borrowing these items for the purpose of your sale, and you'll return them intact if they don't sell. That's unusual, she said, flipping pages. My attorney suggested it, I said. Because of my memory, I forget things. Her eyes flicked up accidentally. She swallowed that habit and smiled. She signed. Seth signed. I signed. I initialed the clause that said, items listed on attached schedule. Remain at all times the property of the owner and are not to be removed from the owner's possession, except for the agreed-upon community sale on the date indicated at the Maple Ridge Clubhouse, and must be inventoried at the venue before any display. What's Schedule A? Seth asked. That page, I said, tapping. Photographs, serial numbers, tag IDs. I typed them in big font and put a little star next to the automaton's entry with missing written in my messy left hand. If any of these are found elsewhere, we call the police. He laughed. He really laughed. You think you're some kind of museum lady? I worked in a school, I said. Those kids would steal the stump of a pencil out of your desk if you didn't label it. They carried my things to their truck. I watched through the curtain, my heart beating a pocket drum. After they left, I went into the kitchen. Maya was at the table, her phone flat on the wood, her hands around a mug. She looked at me like a child with a fever looks at a mother, hot and sorry. I messed up, she said. I thought they were good. They saved me once when I was stranded after a party. They told me they could help with my car if I told them when you looked like you needed help. I thought. Her voice broke. They made me feel like I was doing the right thing. They said you'd get hurt. They said you'd lose the house if you didn't clean out. I know, I said. I didn't know if I knew, but I wanted to. She slid her phone toward me, face down. There are messages, she said, between Seth and me. You can show whoever. I don't care if he gets mad. He told me to tell him when you weren't home. He had me ask you for the garage code so I could use the laundry in there. I thought it was nothing. I put my hand over hers. Did he ever touch you? She shook her head. Relief fell out of me like rain off a tarp. No, he just... She made a face like she'd eaten something bad. He said stupid things. He liked that I stood near him when he loaded things. We're going to fix this, I said, but you're going to have to act. Can you do that? She nodded. What do I do? Whatever you do, I said. Nothing different. Let him think he's smarter. It's his favorite flavor. I told Investigator Price about the messages. He asked for copies. Maya sent them to his official email so no one could accuse me of stealing her phone. He called back with a tone in his voice that meant he was both angry and pleased. We're going to line up our ducks, he said. 2 of those ducks have badges. One is a woman with a clipboard who suspends licenses for estate sale operators. She's tiny, but she likes to watch men make excuses. She gets so happy when they say, ma'am. I slept like a log for the first time in weeks. When I woke, the house was full of sunlight like a promise. It took 6 weeks. In that time, little humiliations kept coming. The HOA, accidentally, posted a picture of my house on the Facebook group and asked for volunteers to help a neighbor in need. Someone wrote, bless her heart. And someone else wrote, she used to be so sharp, like I died on my feet. At the board meeting, they put me in the back so I could hear better. At the block party, they sat me near the trash cans so it wouldn't be a trip to throw away my plate. They meant well. Meaning well is a cloud people sit in so they don't have to see the ground. The final straw before the big day was a notice taped to my door. A courtesy warning for a disorderly garage. Disorderly means we don't like the way it looks. It did not mention the woman whose son hauled half my life into his storage unit. I stood on my porch with the paper in my hand, and I laughed. It wasn't pretty. The day of the sale, the sky was the kind of blue that makes you forgive the summer for sweating you. People set up tables in the clubhouse early, crock-pots and extension cords everywhere, folded card tables with crocheted blankets, a man in a Santa hat in November playing fiddle near the door. Pamela wore a blazer and a lanyard with a name badge as if she were at a conference. Seth wore a shirt that made his arms look like they had their own addresses. The tables along the wall with the good light had the premium items, a Singer sewing machine, a stack of first edition mysteries that had been read with clean hands, a wooden oar someone sanded so smooth it shone. My trunk was there, my quilt, my neon clock, plugged in, flickering a perfect circle. My toy crate with the carved chicken sticking out its beak like he could peck his way free. The automaton was not on the table. "Good morning," Pamela trilled into the microphone. She loved a microphone. "Welcome to our fall sale and chili cook-off. We are so grateful for the generosity of this community. As always, all proceeds after expenses will go to our neighborhood fund and to help some of our seniors who are facing unexpected costs." I stood near the coffee urn. My hands shook, so I put them on a styrofoam cup and pretended it was the coffee doing it. Maya stood near the raffle table. She wouldn't look at me, which is how we planned it. She looked at her phone and laughed once, which was for the camera. That laugh would be on TV a week later, and the internet would say things about kids today. I would not read the comments. People drifted like leaves toward the good stuff table. It's an instinct you can't unteach. A man bent over the quilt with a look that made me want to pull it away, the look of someone measuring if he could get a steal. A woman took a selfie with the neon clock. Seth stood with his arms crossed like a bouncer. Pamela narrated like a tour guide. "This quilt is a donation from a neighbor who wanted to honor her grandmother," she said. "Isn't that gorgeous? Imagine it on your guest bed." "It's mine," I said quietly to no one. A tap on my elbow. "Zeke. Ready?" He had on his hat with the pins and the face of a man who would pay to watch justice. I nodded. Investigator Price stood near the exit like a dad at a dance. Dana from the news adjusted her camera behind a pillar. The little woman with the clipboard, the one who suspends licenses, stood by the cookie table and stared at Seth like he had something on his face. I waited. You have to wait for a high tide. You want all the eyes to be where you point them. The raffle winner yelled with delight. The chili judge cleared his throat. Pamela tapped the mic. "One last thing before we open bids on some of our featured items," she said. "I just want to say how proud I am of this community." That was my tide. I walked to the mic with my coffee cup. She blinked and tried to pivot, but I didn't hand it back. The mic squealed. I looked at the faces. People I've lived next to for 20 years. People who borrowed my ladder and cried in my kitchen when their son left for the Navy. People who put a candle on their steps when Frank died. And people who smiled when Pamela suggested that old women misplace the important stuff. "Play the video?" I said. Seth laughed. It was a sound you make when you think things happen to other people. A young man in a Maple Ridge volunteer shirt stood by the laptop with a confused look. Investigator Price stepped forward, bent, and clicked. The screen on the wall behind the chili table flickered. The clubhouse hummed. There's something about a video coming on in a room where people are used to announcements and bake sales. It changes the air. It makes people feel like they're in a courtroom and a living room at the same time. The first clip was from the ceramic rooster camera. The angle was a little high, the green LED faint. It showed Seth and Maya coming in the side door late at night. I heard my own voice off-screen, small and tired. Go to bed. It cut to a clip from the little recorder in the cookie tin. Voices close and careless. Smells in memory. Warm metal. Sugar. Pamela. She won't know. She'll think she sold it. She can't keep her pills straight. Seth. I got it. Friday. We'll move the trunk. Dad can power wash the scuffs. Maya's voice, thin. Are you sure? Pamela. Don't be dramatic. We're helping. Her garage is a hazard. You know she leaves her light on? Everyone talks. Gasps. The room made that collective sound humans make when they all realize they were wrong about something and wish they weren't in such good clothes. The video cut again. Seth in his storage unit, holding my automaton, his voice mid-text. We can put this on the premium shelf at the shop. Folks go nuts for weird. He pulled the bird by its beak and made it peck. He laughed. He called it creepy, like he'd never had anyone make him a toy because no one loved him enough to carve. The image froze on his face. Pause it there, Investigator Price said to the volunteer in a voice like a sigh. He didn't need the mic. He held up a little scanner, a thing that looked like a garage door opener. He walked to the neon clock and ran it along the bottom. It beeped, sweet as a seatbelt. He walked to the quilt and he squeezed the seam in a place only a quilter would find, and it chimed. He ran it along the trunk's latch. Beep. He walked to the toy crate and held it up so the carved chicken looked at the room. He pressed the scanner to its belly. Beep. The room was silent, except for those little beeps and someone's baby making a noise like a question. Each of these items, he said, holding up the scanner, is tagged and listed on a policy this woman has maintained for years. I have the schedule here. They are not donations. They are not community fines. They are her property. Silver Nest Transitions and Knox Estate Liquidators signed a document saying they would only place these items in this room today and not remove them from the owner's possession otherwise. We have video of removal. We have audio of intent. We have text messages encouraging entry at night. We also have a little tin cookie box full of promises to return things that weren't theirs to take. We'll take this out of the room now. A hand shot up. Pamela. Now hold on, she said. This is a misunderstanding. Maya told us to take them, and if she's not in her right mind, we can't be blamed for trying to help. We have so many seniors in our community. Stop, I said into the mic. My voice cracked on the P. I am in my right mind. You made a mistake. You decided I wasn't. That's a different problem. Seth stepped forward like men do when they don't know how not to be big. You think you can trap me? He said, energy pouring out of him. You think you're smarter because you have old lady tricks? You went crazy after your husband died. We all know it. You keep junk because you're sad. I looked at the carved chicken. That little bird kept my husband alive an extra winter because making something kept his hands moving instead of folding. What did you make this year, Seth? If he'd been smarter, he'd have shut up. Pamela tried the line that had always worked. She forgets things. She's lying. She turned to the room. We all love Lorraine, but she gets confused. You all know she's been getting forgetful. A voice at the back of the room, small, precise, the woman with the clipboard. Even if she were confused, she said, and there is no evidence of that, your contracts would not let you do what you did, your license wouldn't protect you, and the law would consider it exploitation of a vulnerable adult. What we have here is not decluttering. It's theft with a business card. People stepped back, the way they do when someone says the real name of a thing and it has teeth. Seth moved toward the trunk. "I'm taking my stuff," he said. He put his hand on the lid. "No, you're not," Investigator Price said, placing himself between Seth and my life. His partner, bigger man, Boots, came from the door, where he'd been drinking coffee like a man who likes a show. He moved in with cuffs like a guy who knows where they go without thinking. "Sir, put your hands behind your back." Pamela said, "This is outrageous," and reached for the quilt like she wanted to pull me out of it. The woman with the clipboard stepped closer. "If you touch that again," she said, "I'll write you up here in front of this whole neighborhood. Your license number is 6 digits. The number of people who saw you is the population of this development. Do the math." It was loud. It was messy. People cried, the kind who cry when they're caught in someone's wake. People apologized to me who had laughed at my shoes last week. People said, "I didn't know." Children looked worried. The fiddle player stopped. The neon clock hummed. The chili smelled better than it had all day. Maya stood near the raffle table, white as a wall. She looked like she might run. I walked to her with my cane tapping a rhythm. "You come with me?" I said, and she did. Outside, in the fresh air, she bent double like someone cut her strings. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry. I ruined everything." "No," I said. "You helped me. Your texts helped me. You told me the truth when it mattered. You are allowed to be wrong before you are right. But you don't have to be wrong anymore." She nodded like she was memorizing it. "I thought he made me feel wanted," I said. "Useful," she said, like she'd found a word she'd lost. Inside, the crowd watched the deputies guide Seth and Pamela to the back room to wait for the cruiser. Pamela yelled for her husband. He came, embarrassed, pulling at his sweater like he could fix his life if he smoothed his clothes. He's an accountant or a realtor or something. Some kind of person with clean hands who pretends he didn't notice the money in the wrong drawer. He said, "We can fix this," to the investigators, which is what men who have fixed too many things with money say out of habit. Dana, the reporter, stood at the periphery until it was time to be seen. She spoke into her mic with a voice that understood she was telling people about their own uncles. "We're here at the Maple Ridge Clubhouse, where a planned community sale turned into a community reckoning. Video shows the takers as well as the taken. And folks, the takers are the ones with uniforms on." The HOA board huddled in a corner like teenagers at a dance planning a move. They took a vote then and there, Pamela out as president. The vice president, Laurie, shook and cried and said, "We trusted you." Which is a good thing to say when you don't want to say, "We wanted a little of what you were taking." They asked me to stand in front of the room and give a speech about forgiveness. I said, "Not today," and went home with my trunk like you'd bring a baby home from the hospital. I want you to know what the next days looked like. I want you to know that decisions don't end at the mic drop. Investigator Price called me the next morning. "We're charging them," he said. "Financial exploitation of an elderly person, theft, fraud. The AG's office is moving quick. We'll need you to come down to give a statement on camera. You don't have to, but it helps to have the face." "I'll bring cookies," I said. He laughed. "I wish all our complainants brought cookies." Dana called too. "The station wants to air your story next Thursday. You'll have the option to hide your address. We can blur Maya. We'll call her a relative." "She's okay being Maya," I said. "Hiding makes it feel like it's her fault. It isn't." "You're good at this," she said. "I spent 40 years reading to preschoolers. I said. They taught me a thing or two about an audience. The tiny woman with the clipboard from licensing called and asked me to come to a hearing. We're suspending Knox Estate liquidators pending investigation, she said. I want you in the room when I say the words. If you can stand there steady, it helps the younger ones who don't have all your bones yet. I showed up in my good jacket and the pin Frank gave me on our 30th anniversary, a tiny silver bird with too big a beak. I told them what I saw. I told them that, yes, I wore my sweater wrong side out to see who would use it to define me. They shook their heads, and some smiled, and some cried, and some looked at me like I was a magician. The storage unit where Seth kept his premium shelf had a visit from the county. They rolled the door up, and inside sat, like a shame museum, 100 more things that didn't belong to him. Wooden chairs with names carved on the bottoms, family albums, jewelry boxes, a framed photograph of a boy in a little suit so crisp it made my eyes burn. The deputies called the numbers on a dozen lost and found posts. People came with tight faces and left with soft ones. They hugged me like I was the clerk who kept the ledger. I kept a little list in my notebook of each item that made it home. Maya and I had 3 hard conversations. She told me about the night she went out with friends, and her car wouldn't start, and Seth came and jump-started it without being asked and made a joke about women. She told me about sitting on his tailgate eating fast food and feeling, for a minute, like she was being seen. I told her about being 22 and thinking that a man with a toolbox was a man with a plan. I told her about the difference between being seen and being used. She cried in my lap like she was 5. I stroked her hair and said, "We are not as different as this world tells us we are," which is something my mother once said to me when I did something I shouldn't have and thought it meant I didn't deserve dinner. The part none of us saw coming was how far the road would stretch. Dana's piece aired. It got picked up by 3 stations across the state by the end of the night. The AG held a press conference using our studio lights in the Maple Ridge clubhouse. He said words like pattern and multi-jurisdictional. He said, "We're looking into other operators," in a tone people only use when they already know the answers. An old man from another town called the station and said, "A woman named Pamela sold my wife's dishes and told me she'd send me the check. She never did." A woman from a church said, "We paid an estate liquidator to run our fundraiser and the money never came through." Someone in the comments wrote, "She was sweet to me at the pool." And someone else wrote, "Sweetness is not the same as goodness." I didn't read the comments after that. I told Maya not to either. She tried and failed. There were consequences that mattered. The AG's office froze the business accounts for Silver Nest and Knox Estate pending restitution. The licensing board suspended their ability to operate estate sales statewide. The HOA board held an emergency meeting and removed Pamela from any liaison position. The accountant husband hired a lawyer who said his client was shocked and blindsided. The internet did what the internet does. It found pictures of Pamela on vacation and called them evidence. I told Dana not to use them. "Use the contract," I said. "Use the video. Don't use her swimsuit. That's not justice." We had a second sale at the clubhouse 2 weeks later. We called it the return. People set up tables, but they didn't sell. They returned. A woman brought a music box and said, "I thought this was just thrift store cute. It was your mother's. The sticker on the bottom washed off." She cried. I cried. We hugged in the way a story makes strangers, not strangers. That morning, a man I'd never seen before walked in with a brown wooden box under his arm. He had grease under his nails and a face like someone who'd been told too many times that you can't bring drinks in. He set the box on the table and opened it. The little bird pecked 3 times, paused, and pecked again. "It was in the unit," he said. "They told me to hold it for them. I saw you on TV." I laughed like a fool. Then I cried like a person. I put my finger on the bird's beak and guided it once. "Frank," I said into my collar. If that was the end, it would be enough. But there was more, and it's the part I promised myself I'd tell you, even if it made me feel like bragging. 3 months later, I sat in a room at the Historical Society with a group of people in corduroy jackets and sensible shoes, and a man with hair that looked like he'd been somewhere windy. We looked at the list. Schedule A. We looked at the pictures. We ate cookies. I signed a deed of gift for a portion of the collection in Frank's name, with a clause that made my heart thump. It said, "On display, the maker's name will be Frank Pruitt, Maple Ridge, even for the things he didn't make, because the display will be called Things We Keep." They paid me $1, ceremonial, and they wrote a press release. And then the director said, "There's one more paper," and slid a check in my direction. The insurance company, after the arrests, had assessed the risk and the bravery in the same column and decided restitution and reward could live side by side. It was significant. I won't say the number, but I will tell you I did not feel like a fool for keeping old toys and neon. I felt like someone who had respected the work of people who made things before anyone who owned a lanyard cared. I paid off my house. I fixed my water heater. I built a shed in the backyard with windows and painted it the color of lake glass. We call it Frank's Shed. It has a bench and a vise and a shelf with books on wood and cloth and how to repair what other people throw away. I set up a Wednesday night group for students who like to make things with their hands. Maya puts on white gloves and shows them how to turn a page without scarring the paper. She changed majors. She studies museum work now. The first time she held a quilter's thimble and told a room full of teenagers about the prick of history, she looked like a woman who found a door that fit her. As for the HOA, they're quieter. They still send out notices when someone leaves their trash can at the curb too long, but they don't glue their righteousness to the way your curtains hang. Laurie, the new president, asks to borrow my hand truck sometimes. She brings it back with a bag of good apples, not the kind with wax. People still gossip. People always will. But the gossip now includes my favorite rumor. Did you hear the way she said, "Play the video"? They say it like a spell. A few months after the sale, the criminal case went to court. I wore my good jacket. Pamela wore beige and martyrdom. Seth wore a suit he didn't know what to do with. The judge listened like a person. The attorney for the state played the video. Seth's attorney tried to say, "We were under a misunderstanding." The judge said, "No." He said it like a father to a boy who shoves. There were pleas. There were conditions. There was money sent to people whose names were on things that had sat in a storage unit under buzzing lights. The judge looked at me when he said, "Mrs. Pruitt, thank you." I nodded. My knees hurt and my heart didn't. You want the unexpected thing? The thing I didn't say when I stood at that mic at the clubhouse? The thing that makes me laugh on cold nights? Maya was never really on their side, not after that first night. She came into my room after and lay on top of the covers like a little kid, and she said, "I think they're wrong." We waited a week where she pretended to flirt with Seth and told him about my confusion, and I pretended to forget and lose and be old. But she was the one who held the ladder while I stitched tags into seams. She was the one who put the cookie tin where it would catch the voices and labelled it Oreos so nobody would steal it, because we are all snobs about cookies. She was the one who pulled the data off her phone and sent it to Investigator Price in a neat little zip file with a name that made the woman with the clipboard clap. Knox Messages Export. She was the one who hid in plain sight. If I'm a magician, she was the trapdoor. And one more thing, because it made Frank's laugh fill our kitchen even though he's gone. After the court day, I went home and wound the automaton. The bird pecked 3 times, paused, and pecked again. Then something clicked, and the little tray slid forward a 1/4 inch I'd never seen before. Inside, folded, a piece of paper. My heart did that painful, silly thing bodies do when ghosts lean on you. It was a receipt from 21 years ago. We'd taken it to a fair for an antique appraiser who called it cute and marked in pencil what he'd pay, $15. Frank had written next to it in his careful hand, priceless. He underlined it twice. He had drawn, badly, a little bird with a big beak. Right under that, he'd written, "Lo, if you're reading this without me, I want you to do what you do best. Put things where they belong." I put my hand on the wood and laughed and cried like I haven't since he left. Then I took a pen and wrote under his words, "Done." Before I go, put on a pot of soup and talk to the Mondays group in Frank's shed about dovetail joints if this story resonated. Tap subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. And if it's safe, share your own neighborhood story. Keep an eye on your elders. And for heaven's sake, keep an eye on your neighbors' hearts. Nothing good grows in shade. And if the day comes that someone with a lanyard and a smile tells you you're confused about what's yours, stand up, clear your throat, and say 3 words. Play the video. What I didn't know then was how many people would start tagging their keepsakes and calling their daughters and setting up their own little Wednesday groups in sheds and church basements. But I know it now. It's the sound I hear when I open my window and the wind chimes knock against each other. Tin, glass, and the little spoon I strung up that used to stir Frank's coffee. It sounds like home, held. And if you're wondering about Pamela and Seth now, months later, he works at a warehouse. He clocks in and out. He doesn't handle other people's memories. She sells houses in a town 2 highways away, and her bio says she loves helping people transition. But when you Google her, my face shows up before hers. I hope she reads that as a warning and not as an invitation. Life after justice is quiet, like Midwest snow. It covers the brown parts and muffles your feet. You can make shapes in it if you're willing to get cold. Maya comes by after classes, and we eat grilled cheese and tomato soup. And she tells me about a boy who brings his own notebooks to class and how that makes her heart pound. I nod and tell her to take it slow and to never give anyone her keys without asking me first. We laugh, we stitch, we keep. If you made it this far, I mean it. Subscribe and put your city in the comments. And if you've got a story about someone underestimating you, I want to hear it. Tell me what you tagged. Tell me which drawer you put the good cookies in. I won't tell. Let me leave you with this. The line between junk and treasure is, more often than not, a person who knows how to see. Be that person for someone. Or let someone be it for you. Either way, keep the light on purpose.